Well, welcome to all of you who have joined with us this evening of the Wildwood Historical Preservation Commission. And so we're glad you're all here. And Robin is turning on her microphone.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I am not sure I am live on YouTube just yet.
Okay.
All right, just one moment.
That is Robin dealing with this, not me.
Madam Chair, we appear to have a technical difficulty. We are recording, which means we can post it on YouTube live tomorrow. So not to delay the meeting since we have a number of people in attendance. We could just record tonight and forego YouTube live. We'll get it up as soon as we can on Friday.
Okay, very fine. So as I said, it's our regular August meeting. And Robin, may we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Hensick. Chair Stevens,
Present.
Vice Chair Scott, Commissioner Hammond,
Here.
Commissioner Roughton,
Present.
Secretary Bacher,
Here.
Commissioner Rubis, Alternate Adams, Alternate Quarterneck, Commission Liaison Broyle, Council Liaison Nyon, and Council Liaison Rambo.
Here.
All right, we have quorum.
Very good. Always glad to hear that. Again, thanks for joining us this evening. We're happy to have a little larger crowd out here in the chairs tonight. We have a couple of the students from the Route 66 Task Force. We're glad to have you both with us again tonight. And we have the SWT design crew out there, and we're really anxious to see what you have to present to us tonight. We value the comments that the students give to us, and so we hope that they find some things to share with us tonight. We're anxious, as I said, to see what SWT has to present to us tonight. So I think we'll jump right into the agenda, and the first item, Debbie. The first item is the approval of the minutes from the July 29th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to them as they were presented to you earlier? Anyone have anything on that? Well, hearing none, they will be approved by general consent. We're now at the part for public comment. We know there's no one coming from out on the wires. Is there any other one that needs to be presented at this time?
Good, Madam Chair. If anyone would like to speak at this time, you have 5 minutes to basically provide your comments, and you can come up to the podium if you would identify your name and if you're a Wildwood resident, what ward you live in.
Looks like everyone is staying put, so we'll hear from you later, possibly. So then moving on to old business, the first item is Route 66 Roadside Park Project, the pinup review. So who goes first on that?
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, can we go back to public comments
Yes.
one more time? We just had an attendee join us on Zoom.
Okay.
So I just want to give that opportunity for any attendees on Zoom to raise your hand now at this time if you would like to offer any public comment during this portion of the agenda. And I see no hand. Oh, I do see a hand raised. All right, Mr. Sansone, you are welcome to give your comment. Please do make sure to unmute yourself.
We're interested in the park project. We think it's a good idea. We'd like to see it focus on family, and we've mentioned that before in conversations we've had, and I think that's where we'd like to see it go and make this area a family-focused area. And as it was years ago with intermixed commercial, but there was quite a bit of family activity in this area and when its origination. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much.
Sure.
Anyone else joining us there, Robin? Okay. The Route 66 roadside park project, pinup review.
All right, Madam Chair, I'm just going to do a quick
Very
introduction
good.
to our SWT design consultant team. We do have Scott Rundy with us this evening, as well as Bonnie Roy and Brianna Coleman. And they'll be giving a presentation. As you know, we had a visioning workshop for the Route 66 roadside park project in July, on July 26th. We were given 4 conceptual layouts, as well as we are able to offer our visual preferences for various features that could be included in the park project. This evening's discussion will narrow down some of those conceptual layouts and features and offer 2 further developed concepts for us to discuss and hopefully narrow down to just 1. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Scott Rundy.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Robin. Thank you all for inviting us here tonight to present our concepts. The presentation. So we have a presentation pulled together. Couple of the first slides are kind of a recap of the visioning workshop that we held just about a month ago. So at that meeting, we presented 4 concept diagrams, kind of based on a lot of the programming that we've been hearing throughout our engagement process. And we tried to do with those 4 concepts is basically try to have as unique concept and unique layout with each one, so we can kind of flush out specific design ideas, spatial layouts, program elements from each of them that were kind of preferred. And as a follow-up to that presentation, go to the next slide. We prepared a quick survey in tangent with the concepts and the visual preference boards to kind of get some more specific feedback on the concepts themselves and what was the overall preferred concepts. So you can see on the chart on the left, the concept D, which we are calling the timeline walk concept, was the most preferred. And concept B and C, those were pretty close, as well as A, as far as preference. So what we decided to do from those 4 concepts was distill it down to moving forward further development, concept D, and a blend of some of the things we saw that was preferred in concept B and C. So overall takeaways, some of the thoughts that we heard that were kind of consistent throughout was the options that showed parking access off of the Grover Crossing roundabout versus adding a curb cut in Manchester Road was seen as a positive. Generally, one of the common notes we saw was providing more of the park space for usable park space and programming. So a lot of them mentioned reducing the parking lot size. Felt like the concept that showed about 10 or 11 parking stalls was about the right amount. And some of the elements that were shown in the timeline walks such as the serpentine wall, the various play spaces, were all kind of seen as desirable. Can go to the next slide. So we took those two concepts and we started to add a little bit more detail. So they're a little bit less diagrammatic. We're starting to show more physical elements, specific kind of spatial layout. This first concept is the concept. So large focus of this concept, and the next one you'll see is the kind of heavy focus on the streetscape frontage. Oh, no worries. I think you need to go back one more. There you go. Yep, thank you. So the frontage along Manchester Road, taking advantage of that, using that as kind of the key front doorstep to the park space. So this one focuses on a main plaza space right off of Manchester Road that on one side features a comfort station with a extended pavilion over a patio seating area. And then on the other side is more of a lawn terrace that we can utilize as the photo op element that we've been talking about. And the photo op is kind of the key feature of the park that we thought would be the attention grabber, the item that'll encourage people to visit the park, learn the history of Route 66 as it pertains to Wildwood. Additionally, in the pavement, kind of in that central spine that leads from the Manchester streetscape to a staircase down to the parking area, we have some interpretive pavement. So kind of like the third image on the left, that kind of shows, maybe it's some pavement medallions that have historical information, etchings in the pavement, something along those lines could be used to kind of provide some interpretive display. The lawn terrace, the top image on the right, that's another project we worked on where we used a local sculptor to prepare a sculptural element, lion element that we nestled in the lawn space, and it could serve symbolic meaning as well as even as function as a play element or informal play element. Another feature of this design, it has a larger playground space on the east side of the park. So it would start on the kind of upper terrace, and then it would use the topography to kind of extend down to the lower terrace, providing an access way to the neighborhood to the south of the park. And we're thinking this would be kind of more nature-based elements using materials such as Robinia wood, engineered wood fiber play surfacing, things that have a little bit more natural feel to them. And that would juxtapose with the kind of more crisp plaza hardscape elements, such as the seat walls that we have incorporated next to the playground. Also on this one, thinking the pavilion and comfort station could house interactive or interpretive displays, such as you see on the bottom left-hand corner, the image there, and the second image on the bottom, from the top on the right. Different displays that could tell more information about Wildwood and its history and its specific history to Route 66. This is the second concept we prepared. So this was moving forward the timeline walk concept. So we kept a lot of the same elements and same layouts. However, one of the comments we heard was some of the spaces seemed too small. So we took out a couple of the loops in the serpentine wall and kept it to two kind of main spaces. So one key space is coming off of the middle of the park from the Manchester streetscape. And this is kind of, I'm calling this the Playground Plaza. So what we want to do with this one was provide a play space, but also maybe using the playground space to double as the photo op. So you see the images on the top right there. You know, potentially the play feature could not only function as a interpretive element, a element that speaks to the Route 66 history. It could also be a play element that children could climb into, climb up against, etc. And then the middle of that plaza would be the timeline walk. So the images on the left side there, the middle left side, would be decorative pavements that could be either etched or incorporate graphic panels, paving panels that kind of talk about the history, the location of Route 66 and Wildwood. Additionally, we're thinking the serpentine wall, it'll function as a seat wall, but also a retaining wall to help with grading in the plaza. And this could also incorporate interpretive elements such as the signage you see there on the bottom left, inscriptions in the pavement, decorative veneers, etc., that kind of speak to the history. The purple node there, we kind of left that as a flexible space. So that could either function as additional play area, potentially more of an interpretive plaza, or patio seating, things of that nature. So we kind of left that open. Another thing to note on the central plaza, we're using with this concept, a kind of arched entryway to serve as kind of a gate to kind of help close in the area for safety from a playground standpoint from the roadway that's directly adjacent to it, but also could function as a monument sign for the park as well. And on the east side, we have a smaller comfort station pavilion located here, and that would incorporate theming such as you see in the bottom right corner, kind of the fruit stand, food market thing that we've talked about in previous meetings. Another thing to note about both the concepts, so both incorporate bike racks in this concept, and both of them are pretty close to the comfort station. Both incorporate patio seating, bench seating, buffer landscape, and a number of canopy trees placed throughout the park to help provide shade. As well, we're showing on both concepts a screen fence between the parking lot and the neighborhood to the south to kind of help minimize car lights, excessive noise, things like that, to kind of help provide a little bit of an extra buffer. So before I move forward, I just kind of want to see if there's any comments on the concepts or questions, anything we want to go back and look at either of the two, or. Yep, go ahead.
Is there any shaded area?
So the shade that we have here would be mainly provided by the tree canopy. So we don't have a specific shade structure. We're thinking in the comfort station, there'd be a little bit of an overhang there, but not necessarily as big as like concept A, where we have more of a pavilion dedicated to providing an actual shade. Yeah, it'll be a little bit more out in the open, like the purple kind of plaza space, that could potentially be an area where maybe you have a smaller shade structure or a canopy, shade canopy to kind of help provide shade. Something like that could be provided. Yeah, so that could potentially be, one of the functionalities of that space. We haven't really talked about that, but it could be, if that's a desirable feature, that could be incorporated into that. Something similar. I don't know if you've been to the splash pad in Botanical Gardens, maybe something similar to that, where it's has a seat wall kind of surrounding the space, a couple of splash features. I think that could fit well in that space.
Dan?
If I wanted to have a picnic, how many people could you accommodate? And how many picnics at one time could I accommodate?
I think with each concept, we had about 9 or 10 4-seat patio tables. So I think that formally, like seating wise, you could have that. Additionally, probably the lawn on the south there. There's some space there along the seat walls. I think all that could potentially be used for picnicking. We haven't really run any numbers to see what kind of occupancy or total usage.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Debbie?
So the food market is a nice concept, but that would be something that would be more seasonal. And how would something like that be manned?
Yeah, we haven't really thought about that yet. I don't know if it would be an actual food market or maybe it's just themed to be kind of a food market, and then maybe it just houses interpretive displays or pamphlets or handouts in between versus being an actual stand or kind of concession type. Yep.
At one point, we had talked about possibly using some of the Ozark stone.
Mhm.
Did you have that
Yeah, I think
incorporated?
I think that could be incorporated into things like the sculptural wall, using kind of the natural materials. The building as well, that could be, part of the veneer could be the Ozark stone.
Okay,
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of different opportunity to incorporate that. Even some of the decorative paving potentially could use some of that.
thank you.
Mhm.
Chris?
Yeah, so I like the idea of like a food market or maybe a mock gas station or something that is themed. And this one obviously says Route 66 Food Market on it, but something along those lines. Have you given any thoughts to what that in this mock-up, the sculpture feature number 4 might be? I mean, the ATL's obviously Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how you go about it. Could you have someone design a play space that were like a almost a jungle gymish thing that was like a Route 66 sign? I don't like, is that feasible maybe?
We've been talking about that, and another kind of endeavor that we're going to be embarking on in the next couple of weeks is the student design competition. And that's one element that we thought the student design competition could maybe focus on, is kind of helping to develop the character of what that could be. So gathering feedback from that maybe could help steer that as well.
The only other thing I'd like to add is I like the idea of splash pad kind of in that number 7 area, especially based on Mr. Sansone's feedback of a family space. I don't know that there's a splash pad in Wildwood anywhere else. Not even at community park, right? There's no real water other than go down to the creek and play. So I think just my kids are past that age now, but I think it would have been a beneficial thing for mothers and fathers with young children to have a place to go. To that effect, I feel like at least in the tables. So back to Dan's question around picnic or space and totals, you may need to consider some shade around some of the tables. If you think about, or just thinking about the Le Cave trailhead area and the tables that are there, like it's nice to have some fixed shade structure there. And that's really the only shade structure there because you're out in the middle of the valley. So
It's kind of hard to see in that image on the very top left. That's another project we worked on, and a lot of the picnic tables or patio tables that we had in that project actually had fixed umbrellas attached to them. So that could be another potential opportunity if we don't want to have a whole shade structure kind of built into the plaza. You could incorporate something like that.
yeah, something that's provides shade, but also low maintenance too.
Yep.
Right?
And
You're obviously not gonna have someone.
Those ones were kind of metal fixed
Okay.
shade, so
Yeah.
they didn't have to be taken down and put back up every day. So that was definitely a consideration with that project, and we probably want to reflect that here too.
Thank you. Great work.
Questions? Yes.
Yeah, my only thought, we start with that little market there. And I think it's going to be tricky because most of the roadside stands are going to be fairly lightweight wood. They're more temporary structures. How you make a permanent structure look like that? I
Yep.
think it's going to be tricky, but I think it's possible, but
Yeah.
I
believe
like
so.
something that looks like that in there. Yeah, and like you said, you could put, you don't have to sell vegetables out of it, but it could be a
Yeah.
little shelter. You go in and pick up some literature or
Mhm.
something like that, but,
See displays, and that sort of thing.
but I do think the design of it is going to be the tricky part, to make it look country and yet make sure it's there for the next 50 years or whatever.
Mhm.
Is the idea for that roadside stand to be in that comfort station area, or I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah,
Okay.
the comfort station building. So our thought would be, it could be themed kind of to reflect the market stand, but it would really function as a restroom facility and utility storage space. So.
I'm impressed.
All right, so part of this exercise too, at this milestone, we were preparing initial cost estimates. So we've been talking about a lot of programming, a lot of different elements. We haven't really gotten to that point yet. So next slide, we kind of dived into some initial thumbnail concepts, and I'll kind of preface, with the level of detail that we're at. It's pretty conceptual. So, almost certainly as we develop through the design process, it'll kind of change and be modified. So concept A, and we broke this out by site prep and utilities, kind of the earthwork, the grading, things like erosion control, connections to utilities for the buildings, water, electric, sewer, all that sort of more infrastructure kind of elements. The parking lot, hardscape, which includes things like the pavements, the walls, railings for stairs, the playground, which would include the play surfacing, the play equipment, the features that are including that, the concrete header that serves as the restraint on the play surfacing. Landscape would include kind of the soil work, plantings, turf, and tree plantings. Site furnishings would be the patio tables, benches. Interpretive features, that's more of kind of like graphic displays, interpretive elements like the photo op opportunity that we talked about. Then the architecture would be the comfort station pavilion. So the total cost for concept A, we're kind of thumbnail estimate at about a little over 1.3 million. A lot of that is kind of driven by the pavilion comfort station building, but also quite a bit in the hardscape and playground and some of the interpretive features. The construction total we kind of thumbnailed at for the concept B is right under 1.5 million, with a lot of that being in the playground, the hardscape features. So those things like the sculptural wall, kind of the photo op element, and some of the interpretive features. So that's kind of where we're at now. And we haven't really talked about budget. So I don't know if that's sticker shocked or if we're in line, and, that'll probably help us determine from a design standpoint, do we move forward how we have the park set up and think phasing? Do we break out or prioritize programming? So kind of want to make sure that we had that discussion as well as part of this meeting.
Couple of questions. One, what's your thoughts on the line of demarcation between the site and the site next door? Because we don't know what's going to go there.
The site and
The site adjacent to this.
the site adjacent.
So there's a lot next to this
Yep.
lot. And a lot of things could happen in that lot,
Mhm.
and it could be could be detractive to what we're trying to do. So what's the kind
So-
of game plan to kind of shelter and protect us for no matter what comes?
Yeah, so really that existing retaining wall is kind of serving as that demarcation line. So we're keeping that in both concepts. And we would kind of preserve that as is, and have a, landscape buffer along that edge.
And greenscape kind of buffer.
Yeah, more plantings and kind of see concept B where we move a little bit closer with some of the programming, the comfort stations, a little bit closer there, and that might require a little bit of modification to that wall. And then concept A, we pretty much leave it in place how it is.
And my second question, Joe, looking at the amount of work here and facilities, I would say somewhat similar to what we got at Strucker Road, Strucker and Clayton. Would you say this is similar to the amount of work?
I think it's similar. Obviously, we did that project long ago and the costs have escalated substantially.
But wasn't that project 5 million?
No, that actual project was less than $1 million.
Okay, so then that's a kind of apples and apples plus inflation.
Right.
Anniversary, you're talking Anniversary Park, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have physical restrooms, does it?
Yes,
Yes,
It does?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize.
it didn't originally.
Okay.
yes, we added restrooms at the request of our users. And so
Makes sense.
it's been a nice addition.
That leads to the erosion and in the creek, so, yeah.
Yep. The cost? Yeah, I think the thought behind that is it's going to be a little bit more themed kind of elements. So there's a little bit higher finish to it cost. The pavilion on A, would probably drive some of the cost on that as well.
Anyone else with questions or comments? Now's our time to express them.
But
Chris?
I would ask, Joe, I don't recall, have we talked budget and what, I guess, where does that come into play here to be able to find those kinds of funds too?
Well, there's a couple of components I probably need to give you as background before answering your question. First, the city council recently completed a 5-year strategic plan. And for the most part, their focus was on improving our existing parks and trails, not necessarily building new ones. Saying that, this was programmed as part of that discussion. Secondly, we are also in the process of trying to develop Village Green, which is the 6 acres just to the west of City Hall. That has a $15 million price tag associated with it, and that was before supply chain and inflation. We are looking at phasing that. I think the best we can offer as part of our budget process, which we start next month for fiscal year 2023, is to look at some phasing.
Dan?
As in 2 years, 3 years?
Given the size of the park and the overall cost, I think that's a good estimate, Mr. Robin.
2 to
I-
3.
And what we'll do as part of our budget, we do obviously the upcoming fiscal year, in this case, 2023, but we also update the 5-year capital improvement plan. And so that's where the department, city council will look at how we spend our money as we move forward. The key to all of this is, as Mr. Rundy mentioned, a lot of the infrastructure will go in first so that we can have water, electric, parking, access. And those things aren't really glamorous, but they'll help us get to those phases a lot quicker.
Jim?
In previous budgets, we've basically have funded the design, conceptual design, this kind of process we're involved in at this time. There was not a budget item established because we weren't sure what we were going to have. You know, we really just had a, so to speak, a blank half-acre parcel of ground. And we opened it up to the community to tell us what they wanted or what they didn't want. And so the timing's perfect relative to SWD Design's cost estimates and your discussion, because as I say, I just got the timeline for the budget process as we move into the fall, and the timing's perfect. And then as you can see, there's a 20% contingency, which is smart. But hopefully that contingency wouldn't necessarily need to be all of the 20%. And then the bidding process, hopefully things will maybe be a little more normal in 2023 or 2024, and supply chain considerations will be less. Inflation will be a little more tamed. Maybe we can, we don't need to be looking at necessarily removing things at this stage. I would ask the commission to focus more, and the task force, the student task force, to focus more on, okay, these are the things we want, how best to phase those, so we get something that's usable immediately, and then we can embellish it and make it better as we go along in the next year or two.
Robin, any additional thought on state of Missouri money?
Well, the state of Missouri money is generally not for construction costs. They would perhaps pay for what we're doing right now, but they're not going to pay for the infrastructure when we put it in.
Okay, but if they pay for what we're doing now, that's X amount of dollars that could be pushed in the other direction potentially.
I will definitely explore options and see if there's additional opportunities as well. They've been sending a lot of grant opportunities my way. Some of them come through the state, some of them come from the federal government. But I can keep my eye out and see if anything fits.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, Ms. Key's been very good at tracking grants, particularly through the State Historic Preservation Office. What you have before you is a concept plan. Those are not engineered drawings nor bid specifications. And so if we can get money to cover that cost, that would be very, very helpful.
Yes, Chris.
Were we, I believe, are we trying to down select essentially tonight to one preferred choice? And is there another action for tonight as well?
Yeah, that was our goal. Our goal was hopefully coming out of this meeting, we could have a preferred alternative that we move forward with. And, if there's one concept that you all prefer that we move forward with, kind of developing our final design. And what that final design means is we'll be preparing a slightly more detailed plan than this, as well as doing more graphics, such as renderings, 3D views, to kind of help illustrate that more and kind of further define. Also, if there's specific elements of each that you all like to see in one, we can discuss that as well. But yes, that would be a goal out of tonight, is kind of determine which one or which direction to kind of move forward in the next step.
If I could, I just provide my feedback. I really like B. I feel, and I apologize that I wasn't at any of the sessions last month, but I like the idea of is the walkway, so you get the winding road or what'd you call it? The wall.
The
And,
sculptural. Yep.
is that a sidewalk running through there?
Yeah, so the timeline walk would kind of bisect those walls, and the walls would kind of help frame in the spaces. Mhm.
It should be a road with stripes.
Yep.
So I mean, tie
do that.
in
Absolutely.
Route 66 a little bit there too. So
Yep.
and I definitely like, I mean, the signage that we've talked about in the past, I don't know if it's still there or not, outside of Big Chief, the overlay that was put on this on the bike path there, things along those lines, I think are great small additions as we get into more details here. But from my feedback, I like design B.
Madam Chair, could I ask you to ask Mr. Hammond if he'd like to make that in the form of a motion?
You're gonna ask me?
Would you like to make a
I-
motion, Chris?
I was, well, I guess what should the motion be at this point? So I move that we move forward with option B as our kind of recommended or choice at this time.
Is there
Madam
a sec-
Chair, may I
Yeah.
interject before we go into a motion? We do have some student task force members with us this evening who have been a part of this project as well. Do we want to hear any comment from them?
I think they've been sitting there so quietly, afraid to say something, but we're waiting for your comments, comments from anyone. So.
Hello, I'm Lauren Dean. I'm on the student task force. I just want to make sure that this is a really cool park to beautify our community, but I want to make sure we're still sticking with the Route 66 theme and overall what we want to convey is Route 66 recognition and stuff like that. And so I think with B, I really like the idea of a fruit stand. If it was actually going to be a fruit stand, I think that teenagers would love that a lot. I'd definitely use it. But if we're thinking more of a comfort space where people can sit and stuff, I think it would be better if, I think he said it before, a gas station theme or even a Route 66 garage, something like that along those lines. And then also with option A, I think he said the play space would be more natural. And I love that. I think it's very Wildwood, but I'm not sure if that's very Route 66 vibes. And I just want to make sure we're putting that out there.
Thank you. That's a very good comment.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Noel Myers. I'm also part of the Route 66 task force. And I was also just thinking about saying that with this Route 66 park, I think that we should be, one of our main goals is to try to be attracting tourists over here to help raise attention to Wildwood and Route 66 as a whole. So I think that we already have play spaces in Wildwood. We already have parks and stuff. So I think that it should be more of an attraction to Route 66 and less of Route 66 themed, but more of a dedication to Route 66. Just my
Good,
thoughts on
thank
that.
you.
Okay, well, let me ask you something. Of these two schemes, which do you think most approaches that?
I think B is the best approach if we're trying to go for that.
Pardon?
I think B.
B.
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Noah. Lily?
Hi, my name is Lily G, and I am a co-chair of the Student Route 66 Task Force. And so what my fellow members said, they were talking about what our goal with this project is. And I feel to add on to that, we have to focus on the whole Route 66 part, but more the individual Wildwood story, because there are multiple sites around the United States regarding Route 66, but not necessarily who tells the story of Wildwood. So I want to make sure that we incorporate that because it is a point in Wildwood. We want people to come to Wildwood for a reason to visit this Route 66 location. And then also I wanted to agree with Chris about supporting the motion for site B, because I really like the splash park. Maybe we can incorporate, because that's like mentioned before, we don't really have that in Wildwood. And then also something that I would like to add, like although we talked about like the food market stand, I really think the gas station little portion would be a good addition, because in one of the previous meetings, one of the other members mentioned that we could add a like electrical kind of addition in which it could represent like a gas station like from that time, but then it would be like electrical to power up your car. So it kind of be like that kind of like play in that aspect. And I really like the way we structure like going through the whole aspect of the timeline walk and walking through what has happened, what the history has been. So that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comment?
I-
Good.
Sorry, I'd like to, that totally just gave me an idea that may get me thrown off of here, but what is Wildwood's approach to electric car charging stations? I don't know that I've ever seen one. Like, that would be awesome. That's a great idea. Even if it's not tied into that particular building, but like, is that something we could or should consider, is having a charging station or two as things grow?
Councilmember Rambo identified that approximately a year or more ago, 2 years. Time flies.
Yeah, it was almost 2 years ago. It's kind of a sore point because I did a whole lot of homework to find the appropriate technology and all kinds of federal and state discounts and discounts from the vendors and so forth, and brought the fully blown package to the tune of like $13K for an entire still state-of-the-art charging station for town center near the hotel and a couple of the restaurants and the movie theater and so forth. And it was just we also were able to get some free advertising from Ameren, because we'd be one of the first in the area to do that, and we could attract folks from 44 because it's only 5 miles away and all those kinds. It was just a great idea. It has gone nowhere. And I'm not sure exactly why, but I'm still on it. I'm trying to push it sort of through the back door. So we'll be doing that. And that was a good idea too. I'll try to pursue it, from that angle as well. We got to start, might as well start now. Thanks for the plug, Joe.
Elizabeth?
You say we're cities, really and going here. I think maybe station, all stations in B would be helpful. To get air, and did discuss this briefly at one of the meetings, and I think that would be very helpful. We have a lot of issues like motorcycles. I'm thinking of like so I think we need to take a smaller area. Might not be as expensive, but I think it would draw a like here.
Madam Chair, I do have a hand raised on Zoom if we want to hear
Okay, thank
additional
you.
public comment. All right, Mr. Sansone, you may talk now.
Hi, this is actually Janet Sansone. I'm sitting in with him right now. I just wanted to comment about the designs. I like the idea of combining the element of the fruit stand with, I think it's design A, where you have like a comfort area. I don't know if it would be very feasible to be able to man a fruit stand all the time. So I think it would be nice, but I think it'd be really nice to have that element. And to, because I think it represents a lot of the history of this area, which is important, to talk about what Wildwood was about back when Route 66 went through here. One of the interesting things is there was a lot of farmland around here, a lot of farmers, and there actually was a fruit stand set up across the street from where the park is proposed at this time, you know, back in the, I don't know, 1950s or 60s. So I think combining those elements would be really nice. Plus, it would provide a place where people could have some shade, have a picnic, use a bathroom. So anyway, that was my comment.
Thank you.
Robin?
All right, my apologies. That just, I just had this brainstorm and I'm not sure how feasible it would be, but don't they have healthy food vending machines? I'm wondering if we can't stick a vending machine in the fruit stand, just a thought.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah.
Tracy?
I just had a comment on the fruit stand because it would be great. It'd be really nice. I just want us to all remember that we wouldn't want to take away from the fruit stands at the farmer's market, because I would think that would be a busy time. There would be Saturday and we don't want to distract from what we already have going on at the larger farmer's market.
Dave?
Okay, well, I think at this, we've looked at these concepts, and I think it appears that B has the most likes on it, but I do think we're going to need to then get into and talk about exactly what goes in these things. You know, can we put vending machines in this? What's it going to look like? Is it going to look like the filling station across the street from Big Chief, or is it going to look like the fruit stand that was there at Hankin Road? And I think once we get a concept that this is the direction we want to go, all these things we can work out, and work with our designers on it. So I think we're going in the right direction, and I think there's a lot of things we can talk about and do and get interesting when we look at the individual pieces. Like, is a lion sculpture appropriate for Wildwood, or is it a deer or a turkey, or I don't know.
Black bear.
That's correct.
How
So,
about the bear?
or I think I've had a bear at my trash can, so it could be a bear or two. No.
Mr. Scott, how about those things that howl in the night?
Yeah.
Coyote.
I think one of those got our cat, so
Dan?
Robin, I just sent you a couple pictures, email. Could you put them on the screen? So we talked about it in the past. One would be, I call it a milepost. And it would have all of our points of interest listed, all of our different communities and directions and how many miles away they are. So that's kind of goes with the theme. That's one of them. Second would be maybe a logo, to your point, that we do on the parking lot. And then lastly, Route 66 weather vane, that's a lot less pretentious, that could go on one of the potential structures. Just a thought.
Those are each very interesting. Yes, Jim.
In B.
Well, the main playground area, the Playground Plaza, we were thinking that would mainly be focused on that kind of one photo op kind of element, like you see on the right side images there. But you could also have a couple other kind of accessory play features there. And depending on what we do with the purple area, that could be additional play space as well.
So you're not supporting.
Not necessarily, no, that space is probably not enough for swings, and it probably wouldn't be great for the amount of pedestrian traffic in there as well. Yep.
And if you have.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Mhm.
Yes, Rob.
Will we have opportunity to provide further written comments because these designs are, relatively new and we didn't have any formal process like we did with the four original designs. I think it makes sense to kind of think about it a little bit because I have tons of observations on both. I think, for example, on B, there's appears to be some lost space at the southeast corner. You could kind of reorient the parking lot, but you guys have probably already thought about that and so forth. And I'm trying to find space for the splash pad, but also for an expanded building to some extent so we can have shade on it or else shade in another place because that site currently is barren and it's going to be a while before the trees get there. Matter of fact, when we get further on, I'm going to suggest that we consider spending a bit more money for some higher caliper trees, providing they'll thrive there. To get some shade immediately, because I think it makes sense to do that. So my final point is, our comment is, I agree with the cyclists, considering the cyclists, because we do have a lot of them. They come, they spend money and hang out. It's a great place to just kind of relax and you got bike racks there and you got some free air and so forth. It just makes a lot of sense to me. So
Cyclists stop along the way. They don't just drive through.
right, stop for beer usually. That's the way I always did it anyway. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we're going back to Chris for a motion.
And going up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, everybody. My name's Carol Jones. I live across the street from this development. I'm on 2700 Grover Crossing Way. And I've been involved in the process. I'm grateful I've been allowed to be involved in the process all along. And one of the things that was sort of promised or certainly mindful was the impact on my subdivision and my house specifically. So in this rendering, there's a nice buffer of trees. And I just would ask everybody to please keep in mind our neighborhood, my house in particular, if you will, that, like pulling the parking lot down closer to the street level. I mean, that's right across the street from my house. I have a deck that looks out. I mean, that's really unattractive to me. I also have concerns about a splash pad. I think it changes the whole vibe of the space. So I totally agree. These are very new drawings from what we've been looking at, and I'd like some time to consider them as well. But I would just ask for you to keep in mind the impact on my neighborhood, my house, and the value of that, because it could have a lot of upside, but it could have some downside as well, depending upon where the design goes. So anyway, yes.
Points well taken, and we all very much appreciate that. And from day one, been thinking about you specifically. And
Thank you.
And I think the question I have for you is, based on the process and based on if we do this right, can you be happy?
Yeah, and I will tell you, I've been really impressed with the team, and they've been very inviting of my opinion and including me in all these meetings, like I said. So I'm very grateful for that. At first, I was really alarmed. Robin and I talked about this quite a bit. I was really alarmed. When I moved in, I knew that this space was owned by the city. I knew that it was probably going to be developed at some point. And so that was sort of a risk I took when I moved in almost 2 years ago. And at first thought, I was really alarmed, like I said, but as the design went along, I was getting more comfortable with it. I thought it would be not a place where a bunch of high school, sorry, no offense, but a bunch of, gosh, that came out wrong. It wouldn't be like basketball courts and, it wouldn't be a place where a bunch of high school kids would come and shoot baskets, at all hours of the night and be lit up until 11 o'clock at night and stuff like that, which it could have been. So I was grateful that that wasn't the path that this was taking. It was going to be more family oriented, more daytime oriented, hopefully. And just a nice kind of a quiet space. And that to me is the way to do it. If I have to live next to it. Yes, sir.
And I think all I want to say is it's our mission to make sure that that's a priority with anything we do.
Okay.
So we want you to know that.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And the city's been amazing. And I'm so grateful that you've allowed me to voice my opinion. So thank you so much.
You don't want the pickleball court.
Unless I get first dibs.
Yeah, I think the play there should be more of a passive park. And I do think that we should look at good shielding from against the parking lot there. And I think it could be pretty well hidden. May want to have the cars turn in the other way, so the headlights go the other way rather than in your side. But I think if I were you, I'd be more worried about our next door neighbor here. What's going to happen to that property? And how's that going to be developed? And you're going to be looking out at a nice little chunk of green space that's landscaped, and right next to it is going to be, we don't know, maybe an empty lot forever. So, but I do think I'd rather look at this than what's there now.
So I would like to go back to my motion to move forward with this doing further design and kind of mock-ups and whatnot on Plan B. I'm all for continued discussion around what is actually inside of that, right? Like if it's a splash pad, great. If it's not a splash pad, great. There really is, I think, I forget if it was Jim that asked, looks like there's kind of two playish spaces right now. The red circle it's still, I'm sitting here trying to figure out how I'm going to go design a big Route 66 sign that kids can climb on, but isn't like obnoxious, just like, because I think that's like a cool photo op type of thing. And then whatever that other space becomes. So I would propose that we move forward with design B, so that the SWT design can kind of continue the discussion and planning.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Steve has seconded. Is there any further discussion? Elizabeth?
I like that. I wanted less parking. And can it be with close to the and facing rather than that.
I think we can. We'll just have to look at how you access where this concept is working off that existing curb cut. So that may have to get reworked a little bit. We may have to shift some of the elements on the north space there too. That's something we'll just have to study further, but I do believe we could shift the parking that way for sure.
It's not expanded.
Yeah.
Limited anymore. What about the? What about the?
Yeah, so in this option on the, the side. So, yep, the ones that have the sidewalk that run to it, the thought being those would be ADA accessible.
There were two before.
Yep, there's two there. Yep, we were planning on two there. Yep.
Anything else? Okay, we'll take a vote. All those who are in favor of concept B, please raise your hands. Okay, anyone opposed? We have concept B. I think we've given a lot of ideas for you to go back with and work some more, and we're anxious to see what you come up with. This has been exciting even this evening, so it's great. Thank you so much for all of your work. We really appreciate it.
The ideas they've given us to work with.
Oh,
have been
yes.
Great. So we appreciate it. Very good.
Okay, so we'll be moving on to item number 2, the Student Route 66 Task Force update. Robin?
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I guess I don't need to bring that so close to me. I am happy to report that we've been having a very active student task force. I think having 3 members in the audience today is indicative of that. So I'm just so excited to be working with this group of people, and we've been doing a lot. So at our August meeting of the Student Route 66 Task Force, we did elect officers, or I should say it elected officers. And we have Lily G, which is one of the co-chairs with us today. We also have the task force's new secretary and Lauren Dean. And Nolan Myers was elected to take part in this commission once we have settled on a youth liaison. So he will be providing updates in the future. But first he has to get through football season. Most of our last meeting, though, was centered around the student design competition. And this is really centered around that photo op element of the Route 66 roadside park project. So possibly that playground Route 66 piece as part of the timeline walk. We've been gaining a lot of traction around that discussion. We've been working with the Rockwood School District coordinators in STEM and social studies, and they've just been fabulous to work with. In fact, Brian Reed, the STEM coordinator, did take part in our last Student Route 66 Task Force meeting. And I can tell he had a great time because he's already offered up his 360-degree cameras and drones to help us catalog our Route 66. So we do have some filming coming up in the near future for that. But another thing that was discussed by our students was how are we going to convey this Route 66 story to students that don't have that same grounding that our student task force has after spending a summer with us. And they said that what really clinched it for them was the tour of the Route 66 corridor as part of their orientations to the task force. So, we were thinking, okay, well, we have a couple weeks to turn this around. We got to get a little creative here. And while, 360-degree cameras and aerials, I can certainly do that with our coordinators. I really think that this tour has to come from the students and from our liaisons working with the students. So we are challenging everybody in this room, our student task force and our historic preservation commissioners and everyone else involved to help us develop a selfie tour of the Route 66 corridor. We're thinking we're going to do this road trip style. So I do have guidelines. I sent this around to you. I also have a sign-up sheet at that back table, and you can sign up for a Route 66 landmark. Once you have signed up for your Route 66 landmark, what you want to do is take your phone or any video camera you have on hand, go to the landmark and just do a quick video. Like we're thinking 1 to 3 minutes tops. Introduce yourself, kind of visit the landmark. So I gave an example, Big Chief Roadhouse, go in there, order a soda, talk to the waitress, go up into the speakeasy, just have a good time, and then give just a few tidbits of Route 66 history at that landmark. So I already have several signups from our student task force members, so thank you for that. But if you would like to sign up as well, I think, this is a multi-generational effort. I think it's good. This presentation, this selfie tour will be presented to the student body when we do a live stream event for the student design competition. And so that's an opportunity to really introduce them to our task force members, to our commissioners, and everybody involved in this really neat project. So if you can, please do sign up for at least one landmark, be a part of this, because I think it'll be a great representation for the competition. So this live stream event will take place on September 9th. We will be recording it so we can release it for future classrooms. We're primarily going to be targeting middle school STEM classes with our live stream, possibly some high school civil engineering classes. But we're also opening it up to the broader student body. So teachers can opt in as they choose, student groups can opt in as they choose, and even individual students are allowed to participate on their own. We're also opening this up to homeschool students and students who might be going to private schools in the area. I'll be sending this flyer out to those places. So we're really trying to make this an open and inclusive contest. We'll be going out to elementary school students separately because we feel like they'll need that additional interaction. I have already developed a flyer just as kind of a teaser for this competition. So that is on that back table. I've also sent it out to you. If you have any ideas of where we might post it, please let me know. And I think that pretty much covers it for our student Route 66 task force updates. Any questions at this time, or do any of my task force members have anything to add? Okay. All right, Nolan Myers.
Just a short little thing to say. For the Historic Commission, youth liaison for the Success Force, I'm just really excited and honored to be able to work with you guys and to help better Wildwood and Route 66 together. I just love history, and I thought that this is the perfect chance that we make history for Wildwood.
Thank you. Okay, move on to number 3. Joe, you have something to add for us.
Yes, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members of the commission, I'm presenting this particular topic because you do not have an item ready for your consideration. And that's because the Department of Planning and the director, which is myself, needs to talk with the city attorney and then also have a conversation with Mayor Boland and our city administrator. I was unable to complete that task prior to tonight's meeting, but we'll have something for you in September.
Very good. Thank you so much. So that moves us on then to the Essen Log Cabin location. Joe, you're on that one as well.
Yes, ma'am, and thank you again. Madam Chair and members of the commission, as you know, we've spent much of this year talking about the Essen Log Cabin. The first component of that conversation was the discussion about its potential use. If we want it to be a location where people could rent it for different activities, events, etc., or did we want to recognize its fragile nature, have it available for special events, but by permit and generally not open to the public from the perspective of its interior? The latter was what the commission chose, and that's referenced in the memorandum that's been prepared. As a component of that, the commission then identified what I call these parameters, and the parameters would help us understand the best location. Ultimately, 3 sites were presented to the commission, and the commission has been considering those sites. That is Community Park, the Village Green, and then Glencoe City Park. At the last meeting at the end of July, you were presented with an aerial photography that showed potential locations and general information about the site. Mr. Scott asked that we would provide to you all as commission members a larger scale photograph of each of the locations so you could put that specific particular item in context with the larger property itself. And so tonight, we do have that information, and with Robin's assistance, we can do a share screen. So the first location is Community Park. If you're looking for landmarks on the very bottom or the southern end of the photograph is the playground pavilion area. That's the core activity node of Community Park. To its east or to its right is the internal road, and in this case, it takes you either to Route 109 or Route 100, depending on your direction. The recommended location was in the northern portion of the park at the new addition, what we call Phase 3. There are 2 pavilions there. There's parking, there's water and electric, and for the most part, a very level area to accommodate it within what we call the Great Meadow. Yes, sir.
One of the questions we had last time was if you had time, you were going to look at usage. How many people we think we would see at each of these facilities. As we walk through these, do you have any estimates?
Well, by far, Community Park is the most used facility that the city of Wildwood owns. Village Green has yet to open, so there are no statistics to provide you there.
But we got to assume it's huge.
It will be, given what we're proposing. And then Glencoe City Park, for the most part, it's probably an overflow location for Al Foster Memorial Trailhead and Trail. And so it isn't that the playground equipment isn't used, but you have to take both in context, I think.
If you had to put them in order, how would you put them?
I'd actually put the Al Foster Memorial Trailhead and Trail as number 1, Community Park is 2.
Over Village Green?
Again, without it being-
Right. Understanding what happens here versus what happens there, what would be your estimate?
I would still say that the Al Foster Memorial Trailhead and the trail system in association with it is still by far the most popular location in Wildwood.
Okay, thank you.
I mean,
Lofty's getting up there too, though.
yes, but I see that all as a component of the overall trail network. But yes, it's just any time of the day from about 6 a.m. even earlier till late at night. Al Foster Memorial Trailhead has people parked there, and there's people on the trail system all around. So again, this is more of the overview. And as that small orange dot, as I call it, that's the new Essen cabin location. You wanted to focus in with mine to the other. Thank you. And again, this is what it looks like in close up. As you can see, there is an access already constructed, a small bridge that crosses the bioretention area for stormwater management. We do have an existing bench at the conclusion of the walk. And then obviously to the north is the existing parking area, the trail, and then the 2 pavilions are not part of the photograph. The next location is Glencoe City Park. And as you can see in the south, what I would call the lower right-hand corner is 2 of the Al Foster Memorial Trailhead. And here you can see the proposed location of the cabin is in close proximity to the existing parking area. That particular location was chosen at first because it offers a good location for utility connect. And also it's near where our historic community marker is located. And zeroing in on that. Thank you, Robin. This is what it kind of looks like in close up. It does require a retaining wall to address grade, but the retaining wall can be, I think, multifunctional. Again, depending on its height, at certain locations could be used for seating. And certainly we can do some, I think, interesting things in terms of the type of stone, the character, the architecture, etc. There is another location, and that was something that was discussed in July, and this is more in between the trailhead and the location that was first identified in Glencoe City Park. Again, this is at the confluence of several of the walkways as it leads to the trail on Grand Avenue. So there is another location that could potentially be considered. This area has some existing trees that have been planted and some picnic tables that were installed very early on as part of the park project. So a little different setting away from the parking area, but again, an option. And then the final location, and there's only one photograph of this, I believe, and this is the Village Green. Superimposed on the property is the plan for phase one, which is primarily the green itself, access to it via a system of concrete walkways. And then obviously we're going to do our best to create a space that can be used for our stage and our concert system and the concert series in association with it. In this particular instance, obviously, we would use a lot of the existing facilities at City Hall to accommodate the cabin location as well as phase one of community of the Village Green. So again, this is the third location. In the memorandum, the department did create a table that it hopes was helpful in your consideration. The table identifies what I think accurately captures what you as commission members have identified as certain characteristics or concerns, such as security, parking, access, utilities, location access, assets. And so there is an opportunity to score the locations based upon those characteristics or items you've identified. And so tonight, their information is being provided to you. Certainly, it would be welcomed if you were to maybe narrow down the selection. Certainly, you don't have to pick one. We could pick two and then begin more intense study of the two locations. If you want to retain three, but at the conclusion of any discussion, before we would make a final decision, I think again, as we mentioned in July, visit to the locations. So you all can see them firsthand would probably be very beneficial and then probably hopefully lead to a decision.
Yeah,
In the Village Green, where would the stage or where would that be?
Robin, could I bear on your patience and indulgence, and could you bring that photograph back up, please? Thank you. And while so the area that's shown as existing parking at City Hall, if you head directly to the west or to the left of that, that large area that's identified by the walkways, that is actually where the pavilion stage will be located in the under the master plan design. So it'll back toward the existing parking. We're going to do some improvements behind the stage area for access for loading, unloading purposes. And then it'll face to the west and the green area. So yes, sure will. We're doing our best to retain as much of the mature tree stands and individual grand trees, but if you visited the property, pardon me, you'll notice that it has a lot of invasive bush honeysuckle. Some of the trees are of lesser quality, they're second, third growths, etc. So we can certainly create that view scape or that view angle if the commission should choose.
Steve?
Yeah, I think historically speaking, or I think the city park is probably the most historic, would be the most historically accurate location for this. And I think second would be the Village Green. I think in Glencoe, I think it shouldn't be right next to the walkway. It shouldn't be right next to the parking lot. So I think my vote would first go to the the city park, but I could see it is a rather isolated area and maybe subject to more vandalism. But there is, are there restrooms there now? I thought there was just a portable toilet there.
Yes, the main pavilion has 3 restrooms, men, women, and family. And they're heated, so they're open all year long. But in that particular area, we just have a portable restroom facility with basically a soap or hand cleansing dispenser inside. So yeah, it is not an area where we've yet invested in a restroom or comfort station.
But I do think, I think that is really the ideal location. However, we talked last time about, is that area subject to flooding that, since it is right next to the creek and that drainage swale there.
Surprisingly, it's not. We are also looking at on the southern end of the Great Meadows, a hard court area. And that question's been raised by city council, and we've verified it both from FEMA maps as well as additional information that's been developed by the park designer. So no, this is not in a floodplain area. I say that, but if the weather continues to do what it's doing, I don't know if there isn't any floodplain area or everything's floodplain. But no, it's not, according to FEMA.
So, but you would be scheduling some tours of these areas.
Yes, I would like to do that. Maybe when the weather gets a little bit more cooler and we can get out there, spend some time. But I think you would enjoy the opportunity to see the locations firsthand. And certainly ask your questions there, and we can do our best to address them.
Yeah.
I will say in Village Green, we are underway with the development of our engineered plans and bid specifications for phase 1. We expect to see the 50% engineered plans sometime next week. That's very early on, as you know, Mr. Scott, but we are trying to get an idea. So we need to do these site visits and make some decisions of probably sooner than later, as we are moving into hopefully construction project for phase 1 Village Green next year sometime.
Now, I think that one we really need to look at with you or somebody there, because there's nothing there now. I mean, it's hard to see. It's just where we'll be sitting, sighting it, and what's the view from it or to it. The other places we can drive by and see exactly where it is. This is so undeveloped and unknown now, just on paper at this point.
Well, I'd be glad to accommodate some assistance. First of all, John Falk with CDI is the primary engineer working on the project for the city. I can certainly ask him to just put 4 stakes out there, kind of give you an idea if we were to site it where it's shown. How would that work? And then we can go from
That
there.
would help, yeah. But right now, we're just looking at a bunch of trees and honeysuckle.
But we can certainly do that if we, because we're going to meet obviously next week when we get to 50% engineered drawings. And so from that perspective, I can ask that.
Thank you.
Better do something.
Dan, did you have your hand up?
Yes, quick question, Joe. From a department standpoint, are we trying to budget to do some of both these projects next year at the same time? And would there be any advantage to prioritize these 2 projects differently and maybe take some of the cabin money and put it towards the park, or take it? Does any of that make sense?
Well, from a budget perspective, the city council has already authorized $700,000 for Village Green construction in 2023. So that's been part of the 5-year capital improvement plan.
So the cabin, if it went there, would be part of that process.
Yes, and we've also budgeted as part of 2023 money for the reassembly and placement of the cabin. So those 2 projects have funding already set aside for the upcoming fiscal year.
Okay.
The Route 66 park, as was mentioned, since we didn't have a plan, it's really hard to kind of ascertain a number. But now we have a number or getting closer to a number, and so that'll be part of the discussion in this year for 2023.
Any other
Thank you.
questions, Tracy?
We kind of briefly discussed this before the meeting as the non-voting contingency over here, so we don't get to vote. But we talked about it a little bit, and we were all of the thought that we really liked the Village Green area. I understand it's not as authentic, but as it develops, and I'm not talking in the next couple of years, but I'm thinking 10, 20 years down the road, this is going to be our city center and our hub where everything happens. And so many people would be exposed to this, not even planning to be, not searching it out like they might have to do otherwise, but just coming here for different events. And then they would maybe be exposed to something they would not otherwise be exposed to. And even though this is all going to be new over here, that could be our little old, authentic section. And it would also be very secure here.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Kurt?
I agree with the main point there. Security for being here with community park. Very little security. And my concern is one here.
Well, even in the worst years, the two locations that were identified and shown to you tonight were not in the flood. So we've been cautious in that regard in that particular location, but my impression is that as we talk more, Village Green might be number one, Community Park close second, and Glencoe City Park a distant third. Pardon, sir?
What was that priority you listed?
Seeing Village Green is kind of rising to the top of the pile with Community Park a close second and Glencoe City Park a distant third.
Thank you.
Welcome. So from the perspective of the department, if we're going to begin a process with at least Village Green, the department we respectfully ask that you pick your top two so that we can get a little further down the road with some of our design and engineering.
Do we need a motion of any sort for this one at this time?
If you wouldn't mind, Madam Chair.
Chris?
I'd like to make the motion that we go ahead and selfishly, I'm gonna say pick our top one and say Village Green, but I'll throw in pick two and look at Community Park as well. I think those are the best two options in my scoring. They are, and Village Green, as council person Nyan said, is that yeah, I mean the future of where people come. I mean, Friday night you guys had the the school bash. That'll be over there in the Village Green, and all that activity I think is great for what we're trying to do here with the log cabin.
Thank you. Is there a second? Dan has seconded the motion. Is there any other comment or questions before we vote? Okay, all those in favor of Village Green and Community Park as our top two choices, please raise your hand. Is there anyone against? We have our top two choices, go. Lost my agenda here and all this paper. Here we go. The work program. Thanks for coming in. We really appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. I will be presenting the work program this evening. Largely, it focuses on just two items. One, I just wanted to give an update on the Route 66 revitalization initiative and where we're at with that. We will be applying for a grant with the Historic Preservation Office. I attended a grant workshop in the last week. And I've been talking with the grants coordinator and our CLG coordinator, certified local government, about moving forward with that. So we will be looking at that as one potential project. Though honestly, they've opened the door to multiple applications for the same funding because apparently it's extremely underutilized. The other update I have for you is that we are still slowly but surely moving forward with creating a Route 66 steering committee for the corridor. We'll be hopefully presenting that again to City Council in September. So those were my two updates there. So now for the super fun update. We do have a final proof now of the Wildwood points of interest map. It came in the mail today, so I didn't even know I would have it for you. But if you look in the back there, we have a proof in true to color. So those are the actual colors of the map that are displayed on those easels. And then we also have a folded version that I think Dr. Rambo stole over there. So if anyone would like to rifle through that after the meeting, feel welcome. It is on heavier paper and it was hand folded, so it's not laying as flat as our map will lay. But we also have an Illinois map back there as an example of what it will look like as a finished product. So please enjoy, peruse at your leisure if you have any time after this meeting. I am very excited to send this off to print and have it ready for Celebrate Wildwood. All else on the agenda, I believe we have addressed. So unless you have any questions.
Thank you for your help with that map. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay, we have two items not ready for action. But then we go on to Celebrate Wildwood. It's going to be here before we know it.
All right, Madam Chair, I will present on this item as well. We do have Celebrate Wildwood coming up in the next month. I think we had a very successful showing at our history tent last year. And I think this year we have maybe double the amount of displays to add to it. So I think part of this discussion is going to be focusing in on, you know, those priority areas that we want to provide outreach to the public. But first, just note in your agenda packet this evening, there is a schedule for the event, starting with the parade at 10 a.m. As you may be aware, we are having a Route 66 theme to this event this year, Route 66 Then and Now. I believe I just talked to our recreation specialist today. There are 36 participants in the parade, and we do have a nice round number, about 10 antique vintage cars participating. So it should be a fun event. But of course, as is always, the highlight is our history tent. So I have noted a number of items that we could potentially do as a commission this year. Obviously, we have our points of interest map to distribute. And we did include an advertisement for our Wildwood history book as part of that map. So 2 birds, 1 stone. We also have our Mcreynolds Award for the Wildwood Historic Community Markers Program. So I think this is an opportunity to really display that award and maybe our replica historic community markers for the general public to peruse.
Are we including the proclamation from the House of Representatives as well?
We can,
I think that
yes,
would be nice.
if there's room. Honestly, I think we need
That's what
2
I was
history
worried about,
tents
was
this
the
year.
crowd.
We also have our student Route 66 task force members that could potentially participate this year and maybe have their own displays regarding the Route 66 roadside park project. If this commission feels inclined, I can put that on their agenda. Their next meeting is September 6th, so I can talk about Celebrate Wildwood at their meeting. And then finally, I just felt, I'm touching on just a few things here. Well, I guess not finally. Next, I'll just talk about the Essen Log Cabin. We still have quite a few displays from last year that I think were very engaging to the public. My only suggestion is maybe this year we have an interactive component. Where is Waldo? I can print out just little Essen Log cabins and maybe place them on our points of interest map display at Community Park and Village Green. And it might even be an opportunity to just have some dialogue, if not necessarily collected input. Just a suggestion. I think it might be fun for kids too. And then finally, one thing that I think would be helpful this year, just because I know I was approached by many interested members of the public last year about information about historic buildings in Wildwood, historic preservation codes, the State Historic Preservation Office tax incentives. So I am thinking it might be prudent to put together a package of information for those individuals that might be especially interested. So I will be sending out a sign up for volunteer shifts in the next month or next week or two. There'll be 2-hour shifts throughout the day. You can sign up for one or more, just like last year. And your participation is welcomed, encouraged, and I know it's always a fun event talking to the public about what we've been doing. So thank you. And I'll open it to discussion so that we can decide just exactly what we want to focus in on.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great. I think there'll be plenty to do there, and I think all those are good ideas. Where will it be the same physical location we were last year, or is it going to be different?
Mr. Scott, it'll be in that same general area. So the stage will be down on the far east end, down by the sales trailer. So we're going to try to scoot everybody that has displays or would be talking a great deal to any of the visitors further to the west, so that the music doesn't necessarily create an issue.
Okay, but other than that, maybe we could get a bigger tent. I think,
Or an additional 10.
yeah, something a little bigger. And it'd also be good if we could be like we were adjacent to the Historical Society. Yeah, back then. Laying things out.
Debbie?
So with the theme in mind, I thought it might be fun, and I don't know how we could even pay for it, but if we could come up with a t-shirt that we could wear as commissioners, and then also maybe have for sale that have something on there about Route 66. So that might be something more that we could do at the tent, and where those funds end up, I don't know, but I think it would just be kind of a connected thing for people,
Certainly a great idea. Let me talk to the rec specialist and our superintendent of parks. We've been purchasing t-shirts recently from a particular vendor. We've had good success. I'm not sure exactly what the design might be, but let's see if we can get them in time first, and then we'll.
I was going to say, we do have a task force.
Well, if you're not counting, we're about 4 weeks out. So we're kind of on that cusp of where a lot of great ideas may be great ideas for 2023. But I do like that idea that there's that recognition amongst the commission members. So let's see if we can.
We do have the existing blue
Right. Some of us.
Celebrate Wildwood. Sure, I still have.
And we are getting those shirts again. The mayor, council members, the Wildwood Celebration Commission. So certainly if there was a desire for that, I don't know if I can get them for you at no cost, but certainly I don't know if the order's been placed. My guess is it might have been already. But we'll check it, and we'll rather know if she doesn't mind, they'll send out an email and give you an update.
Ours are gonna be a lot cooler because those blue shirts are gonna have Route 66 on the back, so. We
Well
can
taken.
start with their shirt, we can stamp them Route 66.
That's all.
We can send them out.
All right, well, if there's no other thoughts, I will move forward with the items presented. And it looks like we will see about getting a bigger tent this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
It looks like our next item is the demolition request. Who's handling that?
All right, Madam Chair, I am going to, can you hear me all right? I'm going to give the presentation this evening and then Director Bunich is going to follow up with some closing remarks. But I'm going to do it sitting down because I do have a screen share. Okay, Madam Chair and members of the commission, tonight this next item is a demolition request for a single family dwelling and associated structures as one component of an overall plan for the development of a 13 large lot subdivision on a parcel of ground that is approximately 66 acres. This parcel is located approximately at Melrose Road and Highway 100. And here you can get a closer up view of it, but is actually the entrance and access is off of Woodland Meadows Drive. The historic structure in question this evening is the Tice House. The Tice House is recorded as being approximately 1910 by the St. Louis County records, but our preservation consultant, as part of the Wildwood Historic Building Survey, actually pegs the building as being around circa 1875. It is considered one of the best examples of a high-style late 19th century home in Wildwood. Here, I am just showing you some pictures. I'm not showing every picture that was in your package this evening, but for those that didn't have an opportunity to look, this is the existing condition of the home today. And these are exterior pictures. I'm just going to flip through them pretty fast here. And this is just to give you kind of a general sense of what we did see at the July 22nd site visit to this structure. And here are some interior photos. There is a little bit of deterioration here. And then we also had just a couple photos taken from the basement of the structure. And I think Dr. Rambo gave a very thorough assessment of the basement as part of the agenda package this evening. All right, so I'm going to stop share at this point. At the site visit on July 22nd, this commission requested that Mr. Whalen of Whalen Custom Homes, the applicant, bring back additional information about the potential for restoration of the structure on the site, as well as the financial feasibility of doing so. Mr. Whalen has since provided the department with a report from his architect, who is registered in the state of Missouri, who has provided an assessment of the structure and provided some basic conclusions. I will not go over those. I'll let Mr. Whalen address them. This department did have an independent party review the report and add her own assessment. That is also included in your package this evening. And it should be noted that the Woodland Meadows Edition Road Association recently conducted a vote of its residents with 25 yes votes and 1 no vote for supporting the plan to demolish the Tice House. We received this communication as a department on August 2nd, 2022. At the site visit and as part of past discussions, the department would just summarize that the following options were discussed as possible recommendations from this commission and could be considered this evening as potential recommendations to the applicant. 1 would be to fully restore the Tice House. 2 would be to restore a portion of the structure to be utilized as an accessory structure, but not as an occupied use. And 3 would be to salvage the architectural components of the structure, such as the identified by Dr. Rambo 8-inch tall blonde quarter sawn oak base, trim door and window casing, all doors throughout the 2nd story. And then Mr. Whalen has noted his intentions to salvage the corbels on the exterior of the home. At this time, I'm going to turn this over to Director Vunich for some closing remarks before the applicant has an opportunity to present. Thank you.
And Madam Chair and members of the commission, my component of this presentation probably will not ring well with you. But I am obliged as the Director of Planning to advise you that our ordinance is voluntary. So again, the department has, for the most part, 30 days to process this through. The application was formally filed on August 19th. So by September 19th, the decision needs to be rendered by the commission. Commission can extend that period for 30 additional days till October 19th. But if no decision is rendered, the department will issue the demolition permit. So from that perspective, tonight, the discussion may not now be so much about you who don't support the demolition. It's how best to address the demolition so that those key elements of the home, whether it's materials, the architectural treatments, etc., are preserved. Again, when we updated the historic preservation ordinance in 2014, the first question the department asked that commission was, do you want to retain the voluntary nature of this particular ordinance? And it was a resounding yes. So from that perspective, as I say, this may not be something you want to hear. But again, if your recommendation is that demolition permit not be issued, that's not a recommendation the department will be able to accommodate. Thank you.
Any, Dave?
Okay. In reading in there, the part you quoted from the ordinance, it just said nomination to be on the local historical register. I didn't see anything in there about demolition or approving demolition or approving revisions. What is it that we would act upon then, or what would we be voting on?
The context is no permit shall be issued by the city for alteration, construction, demolition, or removal of any structure, building, or element listed on the survey. Now, the survey is that voluminous set of documents that we've had consultants assist us to develop. Listed on the survey or site disturbance on a historically affected portion of a parcel until the Historic Preservation Commission shall have reviewed the permit application and issued a response as whether the property should be nominated to the registry or whether incentives should be recommended to encourage preservation of the structure, building, and element. This provision shall also apply to other permit requests as in the opinion of the department would detrimentally impact the structure, building, or element or the site that is a potential known historic, architectural, or archaeological significance. The response required by the Historic Preservation Commission shall be issued within 30 days of the permit request being referred to the commission by the director. except the commission may extend that period for an additional 30 days upon need. Upon receipt of the commission's response or expiration of the established review time period, the director's authority to issue a permit shall resume. And then it goes on to say the city council.
But it doesn't really say that we approve demolition, or not. All what it says is we recommend its inclusion.
You can basically recommend that it should be considered for the city's register, or that incentives would be appropriate that you would offer for that retention. So for the most part, we've always interpreted it since the inception of the commission back in 1999, that we would like you to give a decision, whether that's it should be on the register, and that's your recommendation, that's fine. But you cannot basically say it can't be demoed.
And you also, and I didn't see it in my packet here, the report from the architect, the second opinion architect. Was that in the I saw the one from Chad Jones, but I didn't see the other one. Is that?
Mr. Scott, that was more of an informal review that took place.
But
Like we had a conversation over the phone, but there wasn't a formal report commissioned.
so he didn't go look at it or anything.
Well, Mr. Scott, I'll provide some details. Given that the commission requested an architect or Mr. Whalen provide the assessment, given the fact that Ms. Keefe or I are not architects, we thought we would contact someone that had worked for the city in the past and done historical preservation projects herself. It was more of an informal conversation, as Ms. Keefe noted, and we just wanted to get basically, is this something that's reasonable given what we've seen or the conditions we anticipate? And that was all it was. It's just kind of to fact check and verify.
Well, I mean, I can't really support this. I mean, what I would like to do is go through that house with either the architect retained by the city or with Mr. Jones and look at these different items and see, because I just feel that house can be saved. And yes, it's not going to be cheap. It's a major expense, but I do think when you buy property with a house that is noted to be exceptional on it, that's an obligation you're buying, and to say, okay, it's going to be too expensive to do this. But I do think there are options that can be pursued. And if we have to vote tonight, then I'm going to vote no, but what I would like to do is go through that house with either Mr. Jones or with our architect and look at each of these items and discuss them. And then maybe I'll change my mind. That's my feeling.
Dan?
I think we've talked about it long enough. I think we let the gentleman propose his financial analysis, and I propose as a commission, we take a vote. And let the cards fall where they fall.
Jim?
The items that. Noted. You think. Who would have? Where would they go?
Well, first and foremost, they're the property of the owner of the parcel of ground. As part of as we've done in the past, as part of a recommendation, if it is to authorize the demolition, we've often added conditions to that. And those conditions can be that they be used as part of some of the new housing, or maybe integrated into the subdivision sign, or they be donated to an entity that would put them into good use. We've done that before, or to the city. we have a number of items that we store that we collected over the course of time.
I could see some of the people building the new homes wanting to have some eclectic pieces of the original house that was on the property, you know? But as far as keeping the house, I don't think that's gonna be anything financially feasible as much as we would like to, you know, keep some of these historic places. I just don't see that, you know?
Jim?
What's the value?
Well, no, I was figuring it's a house somebody lived in and they would sell that lot with that house on it. Now, it may not, you may tear down half of it, say the single story or the one part of the single story or both parts. And yes, it would take, I think, a complete redoing of the house. It's a major, it'd be a major expense, but the houses that he's going to be building there are going to be major expenses too. And I do think that this house would be a premium house if it could be properly restored. And it can be done with what's there. I mean, unless there's something very seriously wrong with it, that house can be made livable again. And well, new plumbing, new HVAC, new electric, yes, that's all that goes into it. And it would be a premium expense, but that's what we've got, that's what's there.
But people who are going to spend that kind of money in that development, I don't think they're going to spend that kind of money on an old historic looking home.
Somebody would.
Possibly.
I mean, it maybe takes longer. Yes, the house we bought was on the market for quite a while before they found a sucker that would buy it. And I bought it, or we bought it. So, but I mean, it's there, yes. The fact is that he bought the property and are buying the property with that house on it. When you do that, you take responsibility for what's there and take care of what's there, which obviously has not been done with this house. I mean, the fact that it's still full of trash. I know, and the fact that the windows were gone and the curtains were blowing in and out, and nothing was done to protect that until the commission pushed to have that done. He's trying to tear that house down by just letting it sit there. But that's not, that may be what's going to happen. But that's something that I don't think we should cotton to. And I do think might take longer to sell, but I do think that house restored properly can be marketable to someone who would like to live in a historic building.
Well, it's too bad it's not a smaller structure because like the little bacon log cabin, you could take it and put it somewhere away from all these $1,000,000 homes. You know?
This one won't move and won't come apart.
Dan?
I propose a motion that we listen to the financial analysis and we vote.
Been moved and seconded that we, say that again for me. I didn't quite hear all of it down here.
I said, I propose a motion that we listen to the financial analysis, consider it deeply, and we as a commission vote.
Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 4, is that correct? One more. You don't vote, baby. All right. We have 5. Okay, those opposed? 1. The motion has passed.
We'll switch.
Oh, there we go.
Madam Chair, do
Madam
you
Chair.
want to accept comment after the vote?
Pardon me?
Do you want to accept comment after the vote? He doesn't necessarily have the right to come to the podium and discuss this with the commission unless the chair authorizes it.
I think we would need to listen to what he has to say. Thank you.
And that's fine. It's just there is a protocol, there is a process, and we need to adhere to it as best we can. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the commission. And I certainly appreciate and respect
Excuse me, can you introduce yourself, please?
Mike Whalen, Whalen Custom Homes, 338 South Kirkwood Road, Kirkwood, Missouri. Thank you all, and I appreciate everybody that took the time to come out and visit this property. I certainly respect Commissioner Scott's perspective on this, and I recall Commissioner Scott requesting that I do a financial analysis on this project. I walked the property with an architect that I use, someone that does a lot of we'll call it forensic work or whatever. A lot of restoration, a lot of reclamation. He's helped me on a lot of historic projects in the city of St. Louis that we do. The problem with this house is the foundation. It's limestone foundation. So the back parts of the house were not built at the same time as the 2 stories section. So the accountant in me will not come up here and give you a number that is meaningless. The cost is insurmountable because we would have to take that house apart all the way down to the foundation. The limestone foundation needs to be taken apart block by block, every block cleaned, every block remortared. And we would have to take an inventory of what building products could be reused under today's building codes. So total disassembly of the house, total, by hand, and then put back together. Hundreds of thousands of dollars at a minimum. And at the end of the day, and this was a comment that Mr. Jones, my architect, said to me, he's like, Mike, he goes, if this were if this were an underground railroad house or something like that, the federal government would subsidize this and they have no problem paying for this type of restoration. He goes, the problem that you have with this project is that there will be so little left of the original house at the end of the day and the architectural features. He said, you have nothing left. So the wood, there's no insulation. The wood lap siding is destroyed by termites. So there's maybe a piece here, a piece there that we could use. The windows have asbestos in them. The exterior sheathing was added in the 1950s or 60s. So at the end of the day, there are pieces of this house, really neat pieces of trim and things like that, that I certainly don't want to throw away. And I want them to find a good home, and I'd be willing to donate it to whomever. Brings me no pleasure to knock down a beautiful old house, but this is not a beautiful house. This has rodents, it has termite damage, it's got mold, it has all kinds of problems, and the reclamation costs and the restoration costs would far outweigh any potential fair market value. So I just, I don't like to see a piece of history go away either, but I'd be willing to donate anything to any cause or any entity associated with the Historic Preservation Commission, even the Corbels. I kind of like those, and I wanted to incorporate those into a neighborhood house if I had the opportunity, but it's just not salvageable. It's not. And I don't know if any of you are builders or have to deal with building codes. And, once Wildwood approves or a project, St. Louis County has to inspect it. And the amount of engineering, even for a non-living structure, after I talked to Mr. Jones, he's like, Mike, he goes, you don't even know what you have left after you take it apart. So I respectfully request your approval. Like I said, I'd be willing to donate, any of the trim items to any worthy cause, whether it be Habitat for Humanity or some sort of, any project that the city has or whatever. But it's just, Commissioner Scott, is just not something that's feasible to do. It's not an easy, let's put some new drywall up and all that. It's just not to code. There's no wind bracing. It's not structurally sound. It's a dangerous house. It's a dangerous structure. And I would like to say, I don't own it right now. So I don't have permission to fix things or not fix things. It's owned by Mr. Tice's two sisters. I'm not the one that let it fall into that state of disrepair. That happened before anything. After they had their auction or their estate sale, before I even had it under lease, that's when most of the damage was done to that house. So I am in no way, shape, or form intentionally trying to get it demolished. It's not mine yet. As far as the subdivision is concerned, I don't think it adds anything at this point because, like my architect said, all of the historical elements are covered up except for a few pieces of trim. The roof's not original, siding's not original. The shutters are, some of the trim pieces on the exterior, and I'd love to find a good home for them. Same thing with the interior, but it's just not a salvageable structure under today's building code. So I respectfully request you approve the demolition. This is, the project itself is not 100% done at this point. If we don't buy it, and the existing owners own it or whatever, it doesn't have much time left as a structure anyway, just given the termite damage and the condition that it's in. But I don't think the owners have any interest in salvaging or remodeling the house. And they were born there and they grew up there. So anyway, I'd be happy to answer any questions if you had any, Madam Chair.
Are there any questions for Mr. Whalen? Thank you very much. We
Thank you,
appreciate
ma'am.
it.
Thank you.
Question,
Yeah.
Joe, as far as protocol, are we back on track?
Yes, with the motion that was made, we are within the purview of the time frame. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do we go ahead with the motion for demolition? What do we do?
Yeah, so Dan made that motion.
Okay, okay.
We got that.
So we have a motion then for demolition.
I'd like to add one thing. And I'd like to add as part of that motion that all of the historical components of that house, like we've done 100 times before, be available for the donation and reuse. Mr. Scott spent a lot of time finding a company that comes in, takes those kinds of things, repurposes them, gives people jobs, they put it in their place, and people that are rehabbing their facility in their period type materials, as long as the owner agrees that that's where those types of things go, and he's amiable to donating anything that's of historical value, then that's part of the motion.
Okay, so we're ready
Ma-
for a vote.
Madam Chair, I think protocol wise, we need a motion first to reconsider the action that was taken. And that motion can come from anybody that voted in the majority. Then under reconsideration, you can amend the motion to include what Mr. Roughton just described. Because as I recall, there was a motion to proceed forward with the
Yes.
vote.
Another motion.
I'll make the motion to reconsider.
Second.
Any other comments on it? All those in favor of the reconsidering, please raise your hand. Thank you.
Thank
Is there
you.
anyone opposed? That it has passed.
Now, if Mr. Routen would like to make the motion as it's been described, then we can proceed forward. Thank you.
Is the motion to demolish the facility and maintain any salvageable historical components?
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's the motion.
Second.
Alan has seconded. Any other comments? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Anyone opposed? Raise your hand. Okay. Majority rules, it has passed. So it looks like that's about the end of our work for this evening. Our next meeting will be one more item, the historic tour of Glencoe.
This will be a very quick update. But I have confirmed with Ms. Ava Gilbert that she and her daughter are very, very excited to meet with us on September 12th at 10 a.m. She's digging up old photos of her house when she was that age, and she's told me she feels like a celebrity. Our senior planner, Travis Newberry, is equipped with a new video camera holding stick or whatever those things are called. Yes, he's very, very excited about it. So he will be taking video at our site visit. The thought I have for how to go about organizing it is we're having Ava Gilbert and her daughter meet us at City Hall, but I was thinking I would have you go to the Glencoe City Park parking lot and we would meet and gather in that location. But I will be sending out a coordinating email to see if anybody would like to, offer up a transportation as a carpool resource on that day. But that's generally what I'm thinking as far as logistics. That's my update. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will meet at the area of the historical marker there in Glencoe City Park on September the 12th at 10.
Yes.
Thank you. So I hope that majority of us be able to be there. It will be very interesting. So is there anything else for the evening?
Can I ask?
Yeah.
In respect to the next meeting on the 22nd, it's 2 days before Celebrate Wildwood. Is it absolutely necessary and responsible use of your folks' time with the event that close for us to have that
Normally,
meeting?
we do not have that meeting. What is the pleasure of the staff? I know we have a lot on our plates.
First of all, to Commissioner Hammond, thank you. Why don't you, if you wouldn't mind, maybe give us a week to see where we're at in terms of all of our responsibilities. As the chair just mentioned, we do have a lot going on at the commission level, so missing a meeting or going 2 months between meetings might not be in our best interest. So could we get back to you and give you
Would there
next
be a
week?
possibility to move the meeting to the next week, or is that a no meeting week?
Actually, we're coming out of the summer, so I don't think we have that prohibition anymore.
Oh.
So we may be able to move it to the following week, and that might be a great opportunity to kind of get everyone's impression of the Celebrate Wildwood event and what you heard, what you said, and all of that. So maybe we'll try that.
So we will wait to hear from you for further information. So with that, I will be happy to entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Steve moved, Alan seconded, that we adjourning. Is there any other discussion? May I have a vote? Raise your hand if you're in favor of adjournment. Is there anyone opposed?
I want to stay around.
I was gonna say, you're welcome to spend the night.
I won't recognize them.
If everyone could pick up their think it would help keep the people not having to come upstairs.
Oh.
You take them down.
You're saying Joe shouldn't be going upstairs? What do you mean?
Somebody left us.
Good. I did. You want this or do you want it over there?
Over there.
Sorry, I.
Walk out. You had your last meeting with them here. I know, I think. I'm not. I don't know, it was there Wednesday. There were like, where did these go, Sweden?
Yeah, I'll just take it. Thank you.
I don't know what they did with the rest.
I don't know.
Did he go for it?
Maybe
he
he
had them
did. Oh, they might be.
Oh, no. Do that. Well, you know.